I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Commissioner Lively?
Here.
Commissioner Whitner? Here. Commissioner Tonelli?
Here.
Chair Christensen?
Here.
Commissioner Lane?
Here. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I'd like to say that one item that should be changed is on page 3. Jay Hoag is the speaker, not Jake Hoag. That's right.
J-A-Y?
J-A-Y-H-O-A-G. That's the
Thank you.
middle of the page. Are there any other changes, additions, corrections?
I like this level of detail on the minutes, though. It's a little bit higher than the last one, so not every one of my this is captured, so I like that. That's good, perfect.
All right, may I have a motion then to approve the minutes?
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. This is time for public comments. Anyone in the audience can speak on a subject other than those that are shown on the agenda for 3 minutes. The limitation. Do we have anybody? I imagine you are here on one item.
Correct.
We'll move on to staff reports, or commissioner reports, excuse me.
I have one. The Civic Center Advisory Committee met with the consultants, HMC, yesterday again, to go over the results of the neighborhood visits and so forth, and see what next plan will be shown to the public hearing, public presentation next Wednesday night, the 11th, in the pavilion, starting at 6 o'clock. And hopefully, planning commissioners can find time to go over and see that and hear whatever the public has to say about something that's getting down to be pretty close to being a final master plan for the Civic Center. It's getting close, and it's been refined. There have been about 7 different plans. This one is number, even though I say 7, this one's number 4A by their count. But it's getting better all the time.
Good.
Are there any other reports? I have 2 items. The first, I'd like to ask the town attorney to expand on the memo we received on where you have, which obviously governed Mary Beth's having to excuse herself on the Carson Field matter, but on all quasi-judicial matters, I understand that if only one of 2 spouses being on a committee, one being on a committee, one being on the council, only one can vote on the item. So what happens when we receive a variance request? It could be appealed to the council. This is not quite as quite have the impact of Carton Field, but we do receive those. They can be appealed. Does both one of the 2 spouses have to excuse themselves?
I'm ready to take that question. I
I'm
came
ready to
prepared.
receive it.
I don't know, I just had a feeling this might come up tonight, so I actually created a little handout. I have copies for the public, copies for you guys. So basically, it's really simple. I actually like this. I think this is a pretty clear area of the law. It is governed by the Constitution of the United States, and it's reiterated in the California Constitution and government codes and our ordinances. It is absolutely everywhere, and it comes down to an issue of due process. So the first question that's relevant here is, what is the planning commissioner doing? What hat are you wearing? Are you writing a law, creating an ordinance, or are you recommending it to the city council, or are you in a quasi-judicial role. Quasi-judicial, it's a big legal term, think of judicial judge. Are you acting as a judge? Okay, there are, some standard ways this comes up. If you're making a decision about a conditional use permit, if you're making a decision about a variance. Another one is planned unit development permits, subdivision map approvals, a time when you are applying rules or laws to a specific set of facts. There's usually one applicant, you're making a decision on that. That's a quasi-judicial role, and there's a certain standard here that's very important. There has to be fairness. It's very, very important. The Constitution's very, very clear on it, and due process has to apply. So that brings us into point 2. If due process applies, what is required? So you need reasonable advance notice. We agendize things. People know that it's going to be talked about, so they have a chance to come. And point 2, they have to have an opportunity to be heard. And there's even case law talking about if you're sitting on your cell phone the whole time and you're not paying attention, you've denied them due process. They need, both the actual act of listening and the appearance of listening. So maybe you're listening but you're typing on your computer. Even that, courts have found, denies the applicant due process. The third part is what you were getting to, and that is impartial decision makers. And the courts and everything interpreting the Constitution and the different rules on this are very, very conservative in terms of when you are truly impartial. And we may all know you're excellent stand-up people and you're not going to let that bias affect you, and maybe you have just the potential for a conflict. Even the potential for a conflict counts. And we may all know you would never let that cloud your decision making. It doesn't matter. It is just judged by an outside standard. If there's even the appearance of it, it's not okay, and disqualification is always preferred. So what I did here, just tried to kind of create a little cheat sheet in case it comes up in the future. Now, when you're doing something legislative, and I think tonight we have consideration of an ordinance and recommending it or not recommending it, and in Mary Beth's case, that will then go on to the city council where her spouse will then review the recommendations that she's made. If it were an adjudicative or quasi-judicial situation, that would not be okay, and one of them would have to decide who didn't want to participate. It would not be acceptable to have both of them involved. But in the case where it's legislative, it is absolutely fine. The same due process considerations are not at issue, and I have no problem with that.
Question though, when we receive a request for a variance or an application to cut down heritage trees.
That's quasi-judicial. Because think about it, it's an individual. You're making a determination on a specific set of facts. And it is then later being reviewed or subject to appeal to the city council. So there is the potential for that conflict. Now, were I a spouse on the planning commission, you would need to think about what is the likelihood that that could go up to the city council. Maybe it's not appealed at all, and you've participated, but it's not a problem because it never gets appealed. Heritage tree permit, you might want to go out on that limb. If it's a larger issue and you need to work it out with your spouse, who is going to lay claim to that? If it's a larger issue that's coming down the pipeline, we need to be cognizant of participation at this level could preclude participation by the spouse. And this is not a judgment of anybody's integrity. It is just the law, and the law is very, very clear.
This would mean that really, since, say, Mary Beth and Bill almost have to discuss a variance or request application for heritage tree beforehand.
Well, we hope they would not discuss the subject matter.
Yes,
we would encourage them to make that decision in advance, and I think, it wasn't a surprise. I mean, this happens whenever there are spouses who are both active participants in government like this, and I believe they went into it knowingly, and I feel that they're both capable, unless, I hear otherwise. I believe everybody's been pretty briefed on it.
Well, I'll let Mary Beth speak on that. It affects her, but it also affects the planning commission, and that we, on some of these cases, then we can only look forward to 4 people participating in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
So, and this is not the first instance of spouses, one being on the committee and one being on the council, and yet in Atherton, past practice, I mean, I would say, though I haven't been a part of it, I would say both have voted in the past. I know that the attorneys can.
If I was here, I would not have let that happen.
Well,
And
it was
you,
the Park and Rec
Oh,
Commission that
you
doesn't
know,
have the same,
as I've explained before, planning
Quasi-judicial.
commission is
Yeah.
really very unique. It is the only thing that even comes close to the city council. No one else puts on that judge's hat. None of the other committees, commissions do anything like that. That is unique only to planning commission and then, of course, to city council. So, it's a small town. This doesn't happen a lot of places. But, it's happened here, and I think,
But
my understanding
the
it's going okay.
presumption, no, in this day and age, seems a little far-fetched, and I speak of my own life at home, that husband and wife always agree on the same issue.
yeah.
That's not my experience at all.
That's not really
No, and that's possibly true. When it comes to due process, I think this is one case where really, the law really does follow common sense, and I think it's easy to stand back and think, if you were the applicant, and you came before the planning commission, and, one commissioner didn't vote for you, you appeal it to the city council, would you wanna see their spouse? Would you want them making that decision? And if you're the applicant, I think you can understand that you would want absolute fairness and impartial, neutral decision makers, and that's a real responsibility. We try to protect that very carefully.
As guidance, have we had any of our variance decisions, let's say in the last couple of years, or Heritage Street decisions appealed?
we have very few of the planning commission decisions get appealed. We're, usually, I think, do a really good job of able to work it out at this level. But I can look up how many in the past.
Well, I'm just curious as to the likelihood.
It doesn't like-
None have gone from us to the city council since I've been
Yeah. And Phil, you're the
And I just
senior.
can't think of one in the last few years.
Do you recall?
The only one that I remember, because I was involved with it,
Yeah.
was the one about the heritage urns.
Oh, sure.
There.
Well, that was
That was 8 years ago, 10
quite some,
years ago.
yeah.
And that was somewhat controversial
Oh, yeah.
anyway from the beginning.
Yeah.
Good. On this comment though, we all have to think about proximity and things like that, and we can work through that, and we've done a good job of, I think, of just saying this is, I'm out, you read 3 books one night. So, I think that's, one is part of what happens in small towns, and 2, everybody's, does the light of day thing, which is, does this whole live in the light of day, and, we opt out. So, and I think we've demonstrated in the time that we've been here, that we work the issue well with the neighborhoods. I mean, we understand that we're working with neighbors, and we're approaching it from and doing the right thing for the town and the neighbors. So, I can
As
live
well
with
as
it.
the applicant.
Yeah, well, and I'm assuming the applicant is a neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think that everybody will have their own, element of it, and I have no personal plans to marry or adopt anybody on the planning commission.
Or on the council.
City council, so.
He's already married.
So it ends up in, I think it's just part of what happens in small towns.
Mhm. All right, well, fine, and if there's no further questions, let me move on to my next, which is a less controversial issue, I hope, and that's the report of the Heritage Tree Subcommittee.
No. He's just reporting.
Not
on
this
behalf of the
commission.
subcommittee.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner's
Commissioner's
reports.
report.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to take any time away from the staff.
Yeah, I knew that.
As I mentioned last year, last month, we were doing certain things such as eliminating the eucalyptus, Monterey pine, and basically smaller palms from the protected trees under heritage trees. We are going to divide the responsibility for the final decision between the town arborist and ourselves. on this basis, that if the tree is dead or dangerous, and we're going to change the word dangerous to hazardous, I hope, that would be solely up to the town arborist. Then on anything that is now living, including one heritage tree or 2 or 3, it would be up to the planning commission. In the dead or hazardous tree section, the town arborist would use a scale assessment put out by Nathania Clark, apparently is well known in the field, and a rating of 8.5 on this scale out of 12 points would have to be attained for permission to be granted for the tree to be removed as dead or hazardous. If the removal causes a void or gap in the landscape screen, the property owner has to replace that gap so that it, at least to a size that it would form part of the landscape screen. So, on the other part, we're going to talking about putting in criteria for care, trimming and so forth on heritage trees. We're talking about a better definition of the process involved, including enforcement of planting and replacement trees. And we're also asking the applicant to submit an ultimate plan showing the heritage trees in place, still carrying out as improvements. So at least they look at that and we can see. Our next meeting is going to be a week from Thursday, and I'd like to be able to wind up sometime in January and present it to you. Any questions?
Somebody doing their homework.
And without,
Doing our homework.
Staff's doing the work.
Nice. Good homework.
So, let's move on then to staff reports.
Thank you. Just want to give you an update that after the last hearing on the Carton Field project, staff did have a meeting with Menlo School, Menlo College, their representatives, to discuss the project a little bit and kind of some next steps. We highly encourage them to work with their neighbors and to have some additional meetings with the neighbors to try to resolve some of the issues that were brought up. We also had a meeting with the neighbors, staff had a meeting with the neighbors as well as their attorneys to kind of talk through a little bit more of some of their concerns, some possible solutions, and really encourage them as well to work with Menlo School and Menlo College. I think there's been some difficulties given the holidays trying to set up that meeting, so it'll probably occur early next year, and I also volunteered that I would attend the meeting and could make any just very general representations on behalf of the town. But I think that also gives me an opportunity to kind of understand what's going on at the meetings, and I can report back if, you know, either party are truly negotiating in good faith or if there seems to be some stalemates. I'm not there to resolve the issues, I'm more as an observer. The EIR, we're working on the response to comments and anticipating that coming back in February. I think we previously indicated January, but again, given the length of the comments and the holidays, a little difficult to get through them all, so probably in February. We did have the housing element workshop. I know a number of the commissioners was in attendance. I thought it turned out to be kind of an interesting discussion. One of the residents is very interested in having some more senior housing in Atherton, but maybe couldn't find an appropriate location for such development. But, you know, kind of talking more about the concepts, and maybe we want to look at that further in the future. Sacred Heart is scheduled for consideration at the December 18th City Council meeting. That was the item that came before you with their transportation demand measures. So that'll go forward in next week. And then Little League is looking to move forward to City Council on January 15th. And
They have
that's all I have for
reapplied.
staff
I thought they pulled their application.
Yeah,
Or
they
did they ask, it was just continued?
put it on hold so they could do a little more research, and now they're ready to move forward to city council.
Do we have any questions of staff? If not, we'll move on to new business, and that's item 6, adoption of the 2014 Planning Commission meeting schedule. Lisa, do you want to?
No report. As you notice, we typically cancel our normal November, December, and kind of have a meeting in early December. So that's what this schedule shows, but this is our regular 4th Wednesday of the month, 6 p.m. And if adopted, it would become your regular meeting schedule posted on the web.
Do we have any discussion or questions?
That's fine.
Looks good.
Who wants to make the motion?
I also move we accept the 2014 Planning Commission meeting schedule as posted.
A second.
Okay, no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Planning Commission schedule for 2014 is adopted. Next item, number 7, is Menlo School, the annual master plan update for 2015. Do you want to lead off?
I don't have anything to add to the staff report. As you know, this is the annual report from Menlo School, and I'll go ahead and let the representatives present the report.
All right, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Evening, Commissioners. My name is Stan Healy. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm the new head of school at Menlo. I've been on the job for 6 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very much enjoying it. My wife and youngest daughter and I are new residents of the town, and we've absolutely loved our time here. So I'm not going to walk you through the report. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm hoping that we'll be back and do quite a bit of business with you at some point. But I wanted to turn it over to David McAdoo, who you know well, and he'll walk you through the report that you've got.
David McAdoo, Director of Operations and Construction, Menlo School. Happy to be back this evening. What we want to talk about this evening, of course, is the annual update to the master plan, which is our opportunity to kind of give a 5-year look ahead. We do this annually so that we have this sort of rolling 5-year look ahead on what we anticipate on our campus. We also, at your request, have included some information in here that we update annually, our traffic counts and our enrollment. This document is very similar to the documents that we've presented to you in the past, but, and I thought what might be most useful is I can walk you through page by page and show you what's changed and what has been updated. And then, of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can. The document, the first substantive section in here is the keystone statement. That remains unchanged from all of our documents that we've ever submitted. It is our keystone and our touchstone about what we believe about Atherton and our role in it. Facilities planning is the next section. And we've outlined how we do plan. That remains unchanged, and so that sort of flow chart diagram remains unchanged. And in the 6 points on the narrative, the things that have changed, like in item number 3, we now have completed the Creative Arts and Design Center. In the last report, we were talking about it being under construction. It is now complete, and a really stunning addition to our campus. In bullet point number 5, we note that contrary to the last update we gave you, that the improvements to the utility infrastructure have been completed, and the utilities of the school and the college are now separate, which is a milestone for us in establishing 2 completely separate campuses. Item number 6, we talk about our plans to renovate the facilities on the Carton Athletic Fields. I think most of you are aware of the process we're going through on that, and we remain optimistic that we will be able to work with the town, the neighbors, and our partners, the college, to devise a project that satisfies all the issues, or at least the major issues of all the parties concerned. It's going to be a process. It's a complicated piece of business, but we remain committed to it. The next section on existing facilities.
Question, David. Yes. Mind if I ask a question as we go?
It's fine with me.
Number one, the last line of number one.
Uh-oh, did I forget something?
Tent hall will also serve as dining hall. That's brand new. Never seen that before.
I believe that was in the last report, but we have had a, I don't know what you want to call it, a latent plan. We have an idea that we would eventually like to move. Our current dining hall is a shared facility on the college campus. We are very interested in moving our dining facility onto our campus for a couple of reasons. One is we need to have our own campuses, and we want to move all of our operations onto our campus. We think that a dining facility on our campus better suits the needs of our kids, because we have a facility right now that we use basically for 2 hours a day, and then it just sits there. It's also actually several minutes away for the kids to walk there, and with the lives of our students, walking there and walking back is very valuable time that could be used for other things. Our plan is to incorporate a new dining facility into Stent Hall, the new addition on Stent Hall, not the old portion, on the bottom floor.
A new addition?
No, in the new addition. Stent Hall has the historic building, and then the new addition, the seismic brace, if you will, for the building that was put up in '98, I believe. And in that portion, on the bottom floor, we are looking at a plan to kind of attach a dining facility onto the existing student center, so the student center, so it kind of becomes a student union. And it's a place that the kids can study, meet, and we have much better use of that all during the day. We have, in the vernacular, other fish to fry right now. But we wanted to leave this on the 5-year look ahead, so that you're not surprised if this comes up in 3 years or whatever. But we've got other things that have got us occupied right now, but it is a plan that we're considering.
The sidebar of that is on the page that you show all the facilities, under the listing of the Stent family hall, you have a whole raft of things that are in that building. Something's got to give way in order for you to put a dining facility in. And where would those go?
You're talking about page 7?
6.
6?
On the corner?
On the map, you mean?
Yeah.
Sure, it will inevitably mean that things move around, but it doesn't entail, it's not a new facility, so it's not a new building. It's a renovation of an existing portion of the building. And obviously there are ripple effects to that. If you take an existing space and you build it out for another purpose, you have to figure out a place where the current occupants are going to go.
Exactly.
And we have not worked through that yet. So we don't have enough specificity that we want to make any more than just to make you aware that we are thinking about moving the dining hall back onto our campus. We just don't have any more plans than that. And don't anticipate to for a couple of years at least.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Partially. Go ahead.
Can I be more clear?
No. I
Okay.
don't think you can.
All right. So the existing facilities remain unchanged. We have no new footprints. On page 7, the listing of all the facilities remains as it did the last time. We're still at a total of 303,000 square feet. Because last time we reported that the Creative Art and Design Center was under construction, and now it has been completed, but it's still on the list than it was last time.
Another question for you, leave page 7, pardon me.
Sure.
The last line, academic portables, I guess I don't remember seeing those on the campus.
They are buildings 52 and 54, right dead center of campus.
Okay.
41 and 42, portables too, they look, when I went there, they.
41 and,
Or in the lower left.
no, well, 42, yes, 42 are portable structures, but that's the music at Menlo. You'll see in the,
Okay.
in the listing, that's music at
Right.
Menlo.
Okay.
41 is a very expensive set of portables. They're custom designed to be a childcare center.
Yeah, okay, but I remember seeing the portables up left, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope we made them look a little better than portables, but
I just know.
still recognizable as portables.
The planning on it,
So we still, we remain at just a tick over 303,000 square feet. The next section is actually very important to us, and I think it probably gets to the heart of a lot of what you are called to make decisions on. And we call this our design parameters. And these are, and these remain unchanged. This is also kind of a code that we commit to live by. And what we have attempted to do is to catalog all the things that come up as concerns while we're planning buildings, and make a statement about what we do and what we don't do. So we talk about sight lines, we talk about views into neighboring properties, we talk about noise from mechanical equipment, noise from activities. We specifically talk about our performing arts auditorium, we talk about noise from the athletic center, light, pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic, and access from the west part of the campus. These are, when we sit down with our architects and our master planners, this is the first document that comes out, and we say, these are the rules that we have to live by. The next section, land use, remains unchanged as well. And we still have the two bubbles on our campus that are sort of future building sites, if you will. The one in the lower left-hand corner has those two structures we just talked about. But we also, we kind of reserve those as maybe the site of potential future parking, bus drop-off, faculty housing, and childcare. So that's the kind of use we would use in kind of a land use kind of a statement. That's what we would put in that bubble. Most of it is there now, although it may change over time. But we have no current plans to make any changes there. So that goes beyond probably the 5-year look ahead. The one that is probably most interesting right now is the center bubble, the Performing Arts Center and Theater. We are very interested in taking the center of our campus, and actually this commission has reviewed that project in the past, and it is part of our CUP. But we wanted to keep in your minds that section, and if you walked out on the campus right now, those are our older buildings, and that is our building site for a performance hall, which is the last of our major pieces of development on our campus.
So if you look at page 6, that would be buildings 50, 51, 52, and 54?
That sounds right. Yeah, 51, 50, 52, and 54, right. The land use for the athletic fields remains unchanged as well. Actually, that's not exactly true. This tan bubble that's one big rectangle was, on the last report, 2 rectangles. We took out the dividing line because we had previously said, well, tennis and aquatics might be in the bottom bubble and football and up in the top bubble. We are now looking at this as one site in terms of master planning, and we're trying to see and work with our neighbors to see how things best fit. So what we wanted to do on this update is to recognize that instead of having two adjacent bubbles with activities in assigned to each of the bubbles, that it's one large bubble, and we're trying to figure out the best fit for everybody and how to get everything in that site. The outside boundaries of the site remain unchanged though, and the activities remain unchanged. It's just the dividing line has changed. The next section on page 15, 14 and 15, proposed facilities. This is our shorter look ahead, if you will, and everything I talked about with the new Performing Arts Center, you can see how that kind of fits in terms of a footprint as opposed to a bubble. The next section.
Can you stop you right there for a minute?
Sure.
So the wording is, the wording is pretty specific in terms of planning to construct it in this year, right? The next few years, is the plan to construct, and that's, okay. I'm just wondering if, that's more specific than it seems like it would be at this point to me, but it's your plan, so that's fine. It's almost like we're seeking approval to construct, but.
No, this is part of our CUP, and our
Okay.
existing CUP.
Okay.
So the building.
The building itself is approved,
Yes.
approved concept,
Right.
okay, great, thank you.
So, it's always subject to
Yeah.
fundraising.
Got it, thank you.
In circulation and parking, this remains unchanged as well. So with the completion of all the buildings, this circulation and parking remains unchanged. We still maintain 434 parking spaces distributed through the campus. And you can see in here what that distribution looks like, where those parking spaces are. The next section, the emergency access plan is also unchanged. All of our fire hydrants and our approved plan with the fire department remains unchanged.
David, real quick, on circulation and parking, I had noticed, and I can't cite where I saw it, a reference to pickups and drop-offs on McBain and trying to discourage that. How much of a problem has that been for you guys in the past? And with that being a residential street?
It's a lot better than you would think it would be. We spend a lot of time working with our MSA and Menlo Student Association, the Parents Association, the equivalent of PTA kind of thing, in telling